We've been conditioned to think that weakness is something that we should abandon, something that we should hide from, something that we shouldn't possess. But the scriptures call us to weakness. Why? Because in weakness, it's an invitation for God's power. It's an invitation for God's help. The scriptures actually say that God opposes the proud, but he'll meet the humble. The scriptures also say that we should fall on the rock and be broken, lest the rock falls on us and we be crushed. This American idea of strength and might makes right is antithetical to the scriptures, right? We need brokenness. We need weakness before Jesus. We need him in all things.
Brother?
Hey, brother, thank you. All right, let's hear it for y'all's pastor. That's a good man right there. It is a joy and a privilege to be in the house of God with the people of God. Thank you guys for having me, and thank you so much for your awesome support of One Race. Jeff has been a longtime friend, someone who I've enjoyed every interaction with, I can truly say, and just thankful for the opportunity and to be trusted here from the station. Now, and also, hello to my beautiful wife back there. She is super hot. I'm so grateful for her. God bless her. If you see her wrestling with our children, just know they have not come to salvation just yet. We're working on it. We are working on it, the Lord. So as Jeff said just a moment ago, this passage that I'm going to be preaching from is one of the heavier passages. It's probably the most direct that Jesus has been with regard to rebukes, with regards to judgment. And I'm going to be straight with you. I was excited about this passage initially, and then I actually started getting into it and started digging in and studying and all the things, and it started cutting on me, and I was like, man, what a fool am I? Why would I pick this passage? Because here I am in every woe. Lord, help me. And so what you're going to receive today from the text is the fruit of my wrestling. If it hits you, if it cuts you, if it challenges you, if it provokes you, know that it's me too, right? That we're in this together, that you should feel seen and we should identify with each other because it's a challenging text. But I do believe that on the other side that there is hope. The whole point of Jesus offering these judgments, these rebukes, is to lead us to love, to lead us to hope, to lead us to cruciformity, being more like Jesus. And so my hope today from this text is that you would become more like Jesus. On today, I find myself at an interesting intersection. Today marks the 5-year anniversary of the pandemic, of the big shutdown. You guys remember that? It's been 5 years now. I remember when I started hearing about it in February of 2020, February of 2020, when the ticker went up on the bottom of the screen on every channel, right? You guys remember those? The days of uncertainty, all of the questions, all of the wondering, the sense of helplessness. I remember this. I remember when my mom called me, my mom who is a nurse, called me and told me that she had COVID. She was one of the first confirmed cases in Oklahoma. It was a challenging day, and that challenging day turned into, well, a challenging life for her because a week to the day from that time, my stepfather would go home to be with Jesus because of COVID. So this pandemic has marked me in ways that are, man, it's memorable, it's palpable, it's painful. But it's also a fond memory too, because I can think about us rallying together. I can think about us identifying with one another. I can think about the community that emerged and the solidarity that emerged despite the difficulties that we were dealing with. I think that this is an interesting intersection, talking about Lent, talking about the pandemic, and talking about the text that I'm going to be preaching from today. And I think you're going to see why I see this intersection the way that I do. So our course for the day, so that we are on the same page, I'm going to start with Luke 12, verses 1 through 3. And then we're going to backtrack to Luke 11, 37 through 53. Okay? We're going to start at the end and then go back to the beginning, but we will end in the same place that we began in. And then I'm going to call us to brokenness. Amen? All right, so turn your attention to the screens, picking up in 12 and 1. In the meantime, when so many thousands of people had gathered together that they were trampling one another, he began to say to his disciples first, "Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. Nothing is covered up that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. Therefore, whatever you have said in the dark shall be heard in the light, and what you have whispered in private rooms shall be proclaimed on the housetops. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy." Jesus is calling his disciples, the crowds, the multitudes, the people that are following his teaching, as he's making his way to Jerusalem to do the defining act. He's calling them to quarantine themselves. He's calling them to social distance themselves. Jesus said it first. You want to social distance yourself from the Pharisees. Why? Because they're saying things in private that they don't want proclaimed in the public. They have private actions, but they want you to believe that they are somehow more righteous and more holy and without sin, different than you. I want you to quarantine yourself. I want you to practice social distancing from them. Why? Because they carry an infection. They carry a deadly disease that will harm you if you contract it, that will do you great harm if you get involved in this. What is that? This fraudulent behavior that they're displaying. Hypocrisy. The word hypocrisy has its roots in antiquity. It's a word talking about acting. They're acting like they are something that they are not. They want to put forward a facade, an image of something that they've not accomplished. Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, because they will infect you. Jesus is wanting to protect his disciples. He's wanting to protect the movement, because these Pharisees pose a great threat to where they are to go and who they're supposed to become. If I'm Jesus, I'm exclaiming this too. I'm concerned. I know what's ahead. And I want to make sure that the movement is protected from the legalism and the hypocrisy of the Pharisees and scribes. Jesus, in essence, is teaching the disciples why they can't listen to them. And then also he wants them to know that your sin will find you out. And that you shouldn't be concerned with outward appearances, but matters of the heart. And so we see that Jesus has something on his mind. What would provoke Jesus to have such strong words? Well, a dinner party from Hades. No, quite literally. A dinner party from Hades. If you back up to Luke 11, picking up in verse 37, Jesus is invited by one of the Pharisees to dinner. And one of the Pharisees obviously had a plan. They wanted to catch Jesus up. They were essentially trying to dupe him. And Jesus, being all-knowing, he's like, I'm one step ahead of you idiots. I've been one step ahead of you the entire time. And so Jesus, knowing, he goes to dinner with them. And as opposed to washing his hands, as was the custom of the day, Jesus sits right down and proceeds to eat. Now, my kids have a bad habit of doing this too. I think it's absolutely gross. Do you? I was like, Jesus, you're not going to put no hand sanitizer on? I mean, I get it, but there's something deeper happening in the text, isn't there? See, the Pharisees made rules around this particular practice, and they made it almost like it was a religious obligation. The problem with that is that it's not in the book. It's not in their book. It's not in the scriptures. It's not a command of God. It's a rule that's been imposed by the Pharisees. Now, never mind the fact that it is gross. That's a joke, y'all. It's all right. I'm making a joke about Jesus. That might be a little sacrilegious, but we're on our way. Jesus uses the occasion to teach them something good. He said, you guys have laid a trap for me, but I'm actually going to help you. I'm going to help you if you will listen. And Jesus goes, picking up in verse 39. We're not going to read the entirety of this. It's a lot of scripture. I recommend you read the text on your own, but we're going to work through a few different verses. Picking up in 39. And the Lord said to him, now you Pharisees, cleanse the outside of the cup and of the dish, but inside you are full of greed and wickedness. Wow. Hard words. You clean the outside of the cup, but you're full of greed and wickedness. You know, my kids, I'm going to pick on my kids because they're not in service, thanks be to God. You know, they will take baths because we make them. They put on fresh clothes because we make them. But they absolutely hate brushing their teeth. I mean, I saw one of them, he had fur growing on it. And I was just going, bro, this is wild. You have clean clothes on. You've taken a bath, but you refuse. You just hate brushing your teeth that much? You guys have kids? Have you met children? They do this, don't they? It's weird and gross, and we need to pray for them. But it's kind of like the Pharisees. Effectively, they want to look good on the outside without tending to the matters of the inside, without tending to the inner life. And that's what Jesus is after them for here. 39, and the Lord said to him, now you Pharisees cleanse the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are full of greed and wickedness. You fools. Did not he who made the outside make the inside also? But give as alms those things that are clean, and behold, everything is clean for you. In essence, Jesus is telling these Pharisees and scribes sitting at this table who want to use this occasion to call Jesus out, to confront him, to try to trap him. He uses the occasion to tell them that, yeah, you might have clean hands, but you have filthy hearts. The inner part of you is not well. It's ill-adjusted. You are both hypocritical and you are legalistic, and that is a problem. That is a problem. And so Jesus begins to unleash the woes on them. And the young people know we're not talking about a dance today. There are 3 young people that got that. That's fine. It's fine. It is a dance, older folks. It's a dance. Catch the woe. You Google it. Picking up in verse 42. He gives 6 woes here. I could spend a whole message on each one of them. There's a lot of text here, a lot of deeper meaning, but we're going to build to one arcing theme, and then we're going to talk about brokenness. The first woe in verse 42, but woe to you Pharisees, for you tithe mint and rue and every herb, and neglect justice and the love of God. These you ought to have done without neglecting the other. They want to appear good, but they are not good. They do the basic things like tithing, but they neglect the efforts of justice, of loving God well, right? So they are hypocritical versus being holy. We find this sort of juxtaposition in each one of these woes. And then we progress on down to the second woe. Picking up in verse 43, he says, woe to you Pharisees, for you love the best seat in the synagogues and greetings in the marketplace. He's talking to them about their narcissism in this second woe. You like to be greeted. You like to be recognized. You like to have that premier parking space. You like to have the seat at the head of the table. You like to be greeted, the fame, the notoriety. But you're neglecting humility is what Jesus is talking about here. You're really in love with yourself. This is challenging, and these are hard words from Jesus. I don't know about you, but I like to be recognized from time to time. And every so often, and I'm just going to bare my soul with y'all because this has been cutting on me for the last couple of weeks. I like to be recognized for my efforts. I like for Keisha to say, good job, Josh, you folded that laundry. I do fold laundry at my house, all the laundry. And I'm telling you this because I want you to think that I am a good husband, right? Kind of like the Pharisees. You're laughing, but it's true. I want to be recognized for the things that I do. And Jesus is contrasting haughtiness and humility with this second woe. Moving into the third one, verse 44. Woe to you, for you are like unmarked graves, and people walk over them without knowing it. In Matthew, he talks about it being, you're like a grave full of dead men's bones in the parallel text. What does this mean? Well, in that day, they would whitewash the tombs. As folks were making their way into Jerusalem for Passover, they'd whitewash the tombs. Why? Because to be proximate to dead things would render one unclean according to the law, right? And Jesus is basically saying, y'all are like unmarked graves. You will cause people to be unclean just by being in your presence because you are unclean. So he's juxtaposing uncleanliness and righteousness. And as if that wasn't enough, a very dim, now it's kind of interesting because a scribe is supposed to be a scholar in this day, but he kind of does something that is, well, stupid. He speaks up and he goes, Jesus, you insult us by saying this too. And Jesus is like, yes, Sherlock, yes, I do. And then Jesus turns his attention to the scribes, and he begins to lay into them, and he offers 3 woes to them. He says in verse 46, woe to you lawyers also, for you load people down with burdens hard to bear, and you yourselves do not touch the burdens with one of your fingers. Effectively, you're spending your time dissecting and making more rules, making it harder to follow the faith, and you're not doing this stuff either. What is Jesus juxtaposing here? Legalism versus love. You guys are legalistic, and this is challenging. He moves on to the second woe with the scribes. He says in verse 47, woe to you, for you build the tombs of the prophets whom your fathers killed. It's a deeper story there, but the narrative here is that their fathers killed the prophets, and later in this text, they're going to plot to kill Jesus. You are complicit with the killing of the prophets because you don't like their messages. Complicit versus courageous. And then finally, the final woe mentioned here in 52 is woe to you lawyers, for you have taken away the key to knowledge. You did not enter yourselves, and you hinder those who were entering. What does this mean, Josh? This means that unbelief is at the core of what you're doing. You don't actually have faith in God. You have faith in you. You have faith in your ability. You have faith in your thoughts. You have faith in your way of doing things. It really is symptomatic of narcissism, is what Jesus is calling them out for. These woes are challenging, aren't they? Because can you find yourself in them? Can you find yourself in this story? Can you find yourself thinking that you are more righteous than you are? Can you find yourself trying to present to the world that you are something that you're really not? How many of you guys have things that you'd rather not talk about? Habits, ideas, practices that you'd rather not be shown on this screen today? As a matter of fact, let's just roll the clip. I've got all of you guys been filming you all week. No, we all do. We all have challenging things. As a matter of fact, I can think about 1 John, where he talks about For if you say that you don't sin, you deceive yourselves. We all sin, right? The challenge with this text is that the Pharisees want to present to the world that they don't, that they're not challenged in these ways, making the faith unapproachable, unobtainable. We see this in our own lives. We see this throughout history. I want to put that aside. Now I want to call us into something, right? We see the weakness of the law. We see the hypocrisy and legalism of the Pharisees. But I think that there's an invitation to something deeper here, and that's where I want to spend the rest of my remaining minutes. I'm going to pick back up in verse 1 of Luke 12, and we're going to take it a little further this time and go 4 through 5 with it. In the meantime, when so many thousands of people had gathered together that they were trampling one another, he began to say to his disciples, "First, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy." I don't want you to become infected with it. Verse 2, nothing is covered up that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be made known. Your sin will find you out. Therefore, whatever you have said in the dark shall be heard in the light, and what you have whispered in private rooms shall be proclaimed on the housetop. And then he turns his attention and says something profound here. I tell you, my friends, do not fear those who kill the body, and after that have nothing more that they can do. But I will warn you whom to fear. Fear him who, after he is killed, has the authority to cast into hell. Yes, I tell you to fear him. Don't be like the Pharisees. Don't be like the Pharisees. As a matter of fact, they fear you. They want you to think well of them. Don't be like them. Serve me. Honor God. Look to the one who has the ability to put you in hell for eternity or put you in heaven. Look to the one who created the heavens and the earth. Look to him. Look to the one who formed and fashioned mankind out of the dirt of the earth. Look to him. Look to him who has sent me here to earth to do the defining act to redeem you back to God. Look to him. Jesus is offering hard words here, but I think it helps us. Because the thing that we find lacking with the Pharisees is the very thing that Jesus is calling us into. It's this idea of God, our God neediness. The fact that we need God. This is this idea of brokenness, friends. It's when we take a knee before God and we admit that we are sinful, that we are broken. And I'm talking about the believer. This is where we come and we prostrate ourselves before him. And we say that we can't do this faith journey without you. That if I'm going to look like, sound like, be like Jesus, then I'm going to need you. That if I'm going to raise this family in godliness and to fear the Lord, I'm going to need you because I can't do it on my own. If I'm to persevere in the faith, I'm going to need your help. You know, I got to preach to the traditional service here at 8:30, and I'm talking to saints that are in their 80s and 90s, folks that have been walking with Jesus for 50, 60, 70 years. And I admire that. By the way, I think that service is probably the coolest service here. I want you to know you're not any competition to them. The senior saints over there are amazing. They give the best hugs. Don't hold that comment against me. But I aspire to that. I aspire to a life full of faithfulness. And I realize that on my own, on your own, we cannot make it. Therefore, we have to prostrate ourselves before the Lord. Let's talk about brokenness. What is brokenness? A conscious core awareness that you need God in all things. D.L. Moody said it this way: trust in yourself, and you are doomed to disappointment. But trust in God, and you are never to be confounded. Brokenness is realizing we cannot rely on ourselves. We need God in everything. I hear the words from John chapter 15, verse 5, exclaimed, "Apart from me, you can do nothing." Brokenness is to be dependent upon Jesus. It's to lean on him for all sufficiency. The Pharisees here are leaning on their knowledge. They're leaning on this idea that they have leadership over these folks. They have power over these folks. It's very narcissistic in nature. But we have been invited to lean on Jesus and to allow him to be enough for us. Brokenness is acknowledging we are nothing without God's power and without his presence. The Pharisees are falling prey to pride, to legalism, to hypocrisy. And I want to tell you that pride is the enemy of brokenness. When we rely on ourselves, we step away from the grace of God. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9 says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." We've been conditioned to think that weakness is something that we should abandon, something that we should hide from, something that we shouldn't possess. But the scriptures call us to weakness. Why? Because in weakness, it's an invitation for God's power. It's an invitation for God's help. The scriptures actually say that God opposes the proud, but he'll meet the humble. The scriptures also say that we should fall on the rock and be broken, lest the rock falls on us and we be crushed. This American idea of strength and might makes right is antithetical to the scriptures, right? We need brokenness. We need weakness before Jesus. We need him in all things. Friends, if you have any area of your life, because I know you do, because I do, that resembles the Pharisees, then I want to tell you that brokenness is the path forward. Taking a knee before Jesus and saying, "I need you in all things," is the path forward. If you have some area that you're struggling with sin, I want to tell you that prostrating yourself before Jesus and saying, "I need you in all things," is the path forward. If you're hurting, I want to tell you that you don't have to brave it alone. You can come in weakness and say, "Jesus, I need you." There's power in that, friends. You don't have to go at it alone. We need to cleave to Jesus because Jesus wants to cleave to us. Why don't you guys stand on your feet? I want to read a prayer over you, and that'll conclude my time. It's a prayer from Martin Luther that I've been rehearsing over the last few weeks, and I hope that it'll be a blessing to you. It's on the screens if you want to read it, but I'm going to read it over you. Lord, look at me, an empty vessel in need of being filled. Lord, fill me. I am weak in my faith. Strengthen me. I am cold in my love. Warm me and make me passionate, so that my love can extend to my neighbor. I don't have strong, firm faith. At times, I doubt and can't fully trust you. Lord, help me. Strengthen my faith and my trust in you. In you, I have found the greatest treasure of everything I have. I am poor. You are rich and came to show mercy to the poor. I am a sinner. You are righteous. I have an abundance of sin. You have the fullness of righteousness. So I will stay with you, from whom I can receive, but to whom I cannot give. Thank you all for your time today. May you grow in grace and brokenness before Jesus. Amen.